Hi, hello everybody, I'm Justin, this is Koopa, and welcome to Koopa's Corner. Today we're going to talk about Pokemon TCG Pocket, and this is our sort of end of the year recap. I know it's not the end of the actual year, but it is the end of our very first year with Pokemon TCG Pocket. Later this week we have the brand new set, Mega Rising, coming out, and it's going to be the anniversary of the game, and it might actually be like tomorrow or the day after by the time I get this video up. It might not be like a full week, but I just thought, hey, let's go over the first year of Pokemon TCG Pocket, kind of recap what's been going on. I'm not going to break down every single meta or every single edition of the game, but I just kind of want to talk about the overall experience. And, I just want to talk about a few standout cards in this first year. I just thought it could be fun to kind of recap it a little bit. So over the course of the year, we've had 11 unique sets, plus the promo A. So kind of 12 if you count the promo cards, but those were kind of dispersed. So 11 unique sets with a total of 1864 cards in the game. Obviously, some of them are alternate arts of the same card, so it's not quite so many unique cards, but 1864 in a year, and that is pretty incredible. It's a pretty high number of cards that have released, and we've seen the meta shift multiple times. At least with every set, something else comes in. And I just want to talk about it a little bit, right? The game started off, it was pretty fun. It was very nostalgic. With a smaller pool of cards to choose from, you could sort of play a more diverse deck, and it was still good. There wasn't a whole lot going on that was bad in Genetic Apex. And then as each set came out, it became harder and harder to play, the fun decks. Once Ranked was released, a lot of people were very excited about that. I've expressed it on this channel before. I'm not a big fan. I don't think Ranked was really what this game needed, especially because it stopped kind of the other events from taking place. And I think you saw more of the meta cards, and it was harder to do well if you weren't playing the meta cards. And some of that was just as each new set released and you had more and more cards, the standout cards were that much more standout. I think that players have sort of optimized the fun out of the game in a lot of ways. I try not to be that way. I try not to play Darkrai Garantina. I try not to play Suicune Greninja over and over and over and over. I like to make random decks. I think that's more fun. So for me, seeing that aspect of the game become more difficult, I think took away a lot of the fun. We've introduced shinies, we've introduced babies. Pokemon tools weren't around in that first set. So there's been a lot of changes and a lot of new styles of cards that have come out. And really, all in all, at the end of the year, I think it's been a ton of fun. I think what makes this game great is that it's largely free to play. You can be free to play, and you can still do well. You don't need to throw in a ton of money. And if you do, and you decide you want to, and you decide you can afford to, and you collect a bunch of extra stuff, well, that's great. Right? I like when, I can collect cards and not miss out without having to throw a lot of money at a game. Right, and I thought, hey, with so many different cards, let's talk about some of the highlights and some of the lowlights. And I want to start off with what I think is the best non-EX card in the game, and I just want to talk about that a little bit. And I do want to preface all of this going forward. I'm going to try not to double up on cards, right? So if there's a card that you think could fit for multiple categories, that's great. If I'm using it somewhere, I'm not going to use it somewhere else, even if it fits, right? And I just want to preface that that's going to be the same for every category. I'm not going to double up. I just think there's too many cards and too many great cards to just keep reusing the same ones over and over. And this is my list, so I'm going to do that just to kind of spread the love a little bit. So I want to start off with best non-EX, and I think this one's a fun one. And I think that for me, there was one card that really just redefined the meta completely, and that's Oricorio. I think Oricorio, not only as a non-EX card, but the fact that it just shuts down EX cards really shifted the meta. People had to start thinking twice about how they built their decks. They needed to have an answer in their deck for an Oricorio. Oricorio can slip into so many different decks. And it, before it was not uncommon to have 2 or 3 EX cards, and that was that. And you just can't do that anymore. You have to be able to play around Oricorio, or you're done. You're done. It's that simple. So Oricorio, I think, best non-EX card. Best supporter. Best supporter is an interesting one. This was a little bit tough for me because I didn't really know if I wanted to count, what I didn't want to count. But I think I'm going to go with Professor's Research. It seems obvious, right? I almost didn't want to count it, though, because it was the card you buy in the shop. It wasn't in any of the sets until this beautiful full art version in Deluxe Pack EX. And obviously Professor's has been in every single meta and every single deck that you build since the very beginning. It's like the one card that has consistently remained a must-have in every single deck. Cyrus is great. Sabrina is great. I think, cards like Red and Giovanni, vastly underrated. Guzma is so undervalued and is such an important card. I'd argue almost more so than like a Mars, and I know Mars is like very popular to have around. But none of them just felt as important as Professor's Research. You could get away with, building a deck with a handful of good supporters, but any one of those given ones that I mentioned, they could be left out and it'd be fine. If you were running a Sabrina instead of a Cyrus, or a Cyrus instead of a Sabrina, you're fine. You don't have to have one of each, right? If you have a Red and a Giovanni and a Mars, and you don't have a Cyrus, that's fine, right? But Professor's Research, it just kind of needs to be in every single deck. Drawing your cards is how you play the game. It's how you win. So you need a way to be able to do that. And I don't think I really need to, justify that anymore. It's just such an important card, right? I want to talk about Best EX now, right? Best EX. And this one wasn't too difficult for me personally. There was only a couple that really stood out as like peak EX cards. There have been a lot of really fun ones, a lot of really cool ones, a lot of ones that I prefer to play over this one. Most of them I prefer to play over this one. I don't actually like to play this card, but there's no doubt that it is the best. It pairs so well with a specific card, making a specific deck, and that deck has remained a very meta threat in every single meta since, right? And now you're probably thinking one of 2 cards, right? That's Darkrai and Garantina. I'm picking Garantina. The fact that you're able to generate your own energy means you can pair it with not just Darkrai, which works really well, not just Greninja and Sylveon, which works really well, but with kind of anything. You can put it in any type of deck. It doesn't have to be Psychic and Dark. Any kind of energy, dual energy if you want, or single energy, because it generates its own. And I think that is super valuable. It does a ton of damage. It's pretty tanky. And it's a basic. It just slots in so well with so many different things. So I think, first full year, so many great EX cards to choose from. But I think Giratina EX stands out as the best EX of the year. All right, the next category is it's one I think is really fun one. I'm really happy with this, and I want to say that's the best immersive card that has come out. Right, best immersive, and for me, pulling this card was one of the highlights of my experience playing this game, and that was new art coming soon. Right, when Wisdom of Sea and Sky came out, and there was a little bit of controversy with the Ho-Oh art, they pulled it right at the last second, and we had a very short period of time where your Ho-Oh EX and your Lugia EX did not have art on the immersive version of them. They had just a new art coming soon. It was hilarious. I wasn't expecting it when it first came out, and I just had a ton of fun joking around about it. And it helps you to take this game not as seriously when it, sometimes maybe take it a little too seriously. For me, it was fun, and it was a standout moment. So new art coming soon. My personal favorite, immersive, for the first year. So let's talk about the sets I mentioned earlier. There were 11 unique sets that have come out since this first year of Pokemon Pocket. I want to talk about the best set. I also want to talk about the worst set, right? And then the others kind of in between. And ironically enough, for me personally, the very best set was Genetic Apex, the very first set, right? And the very first set was the best in my opinion because of some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, right? The fact that there wasn't as big of a variety of cards. The better ones, yeah, everyone played Mewtwo Gardevoir, but it wasn't unbeatable. It wasn't too punishing if you didn't play it. You could have a lot of fun with other cards, other decks. And there were a ton of great cards that are not great today. Right? I'm looking at you, Starmie EX. I mean, that might have been my favorite card in the very beginning. But you can't really fit it into a deck now. It didn't keep up with the power creep. And I think there's been a lot of power creep. And to me, there was just a lot of hype when the game first launched. And there's still a good amount of hype about this game, but it's dwindled. It dwindles a little bit at a time, That very first set also largely featured Kanto region. And that's, I think, one of the best regions in my opinion. I know that's very controversial, but I think that there's something, to say about doing something well right off the bat. It's, you set the stage. You set the tone, You wouldn't have all of the success you've had afterwards if you didn't do it right in the beginning. Or if you didn't do something right in the beginning, And that's how I feel about Kanto, and that's how I feel about Genetic Apex. It's also the only set we've had that was a full 3-pack set, at least up until the new Mega Rising comes out. That's going to be our next big 3-pack set. And it also gave us 6 weeks-ish in between sets versus, what has kind of consistently been about 4 weeks ever since. And I do think that is a little bit fast. It makes it a little bit hard to collect all of the cards that you want to collect, especially for those free-to-play players. So a number of reasons why I think Genetic Apex was the peak set so far, right? And on the flip side of that, our worst set, I think, is pretty unanimous here. I don't think this is nearly as controversial, but I think it's Deluxe Pack EX, right? I very much appreciate what they were going for. If you had fallen off of the game, if you were a new player, this was a great way to catch up, get a bunch of powerful EXs from the first year. But I don't think the execution was really all that good. There were too many cards. We didn't need so many repeat cards. You had a regular card and then a foil version of that regular card. So essentially doubling up on each card in the set, and then you had all your EXs, and then you had your alternate arts. And now some of these alternate arts were great. I loved this art style for these alternate arts. I love that we got a full art Professor's Research. I think that this set could have been more of that. If they had only done the foil versions and not the regular versions of all of your base cards, that would have been something. Because at least those are new, right? And so I think there would have been a little bit more excitement, even in a recap deck, if you had, you know, more of the foils, more alternate arts, and just let it, because they still would have been repeats in a way, but it would have given people something to collect along the way. So yeah, new players and returning players could have caught up, and they still could have had a version of whatever EX that they managed to collect, right, in order to kind of catch up. From a deck building perspective, it would have acted the very same, but all these different arts, it just would have made the deck or the pack, it just would have made it more palatable, and it would have made it a little bit smaller, which would have made it easier to collect things. So yeah, Deluxe Pack EX, worst set of the year. And that's why I'm really glad that we're moving on to Mega Rising, because the other side of that is without any new cards, new cards, the meta didn't change at all, so you're stuck playing the same old, you know, the way that people optimize the fun out of it. Almost everything you're up against, Suicune Greninja, Suicune Greninja, Suicune Greninja. It was boring. It just wasn't fun. Right? So, we're set. Deluxe Pack EX. Alright, now we're going to talk about the card that I hate the most. Right? Maybe not the worst card. Part of me wants to call it the worst card. But definitely the most annoying card. The card that I personally hate the most in the full year. I think I'm very grateful it wasn't meta the entire time, but it was at some point, and it was just annoying to play against. I didn't like it, and I still don't. And it's my least favorite card that has ever come out, and that is Celebi EX. I hate Celebi EX. I think it was stupid. I'm glad you don't really see it that much anymore. And now I want to talk about the worst art in the game. And I think the worst art in the game also feels pretty obvious, guys. You know, I don't know. To me, it feels pretty obvious. And that is from Shining Revelry. And that is Wigglytuff. The Shining Revelry version of Wigglytuff. This thing is disgusting. Yeah, really creepy. Not a fan. Not a fan. Alright, best art though. Right, that was the worst art. What about the best art? Best art, in my opinion, it's kind of a tie. I really had trouble narrowing it down. I actually had a handful of them that I was kind of trying to decide between, and after a little bit of debate, I kind of got it down to two, and I really couldn't decide. And that is from Genetic Apex, that's going to be Gyarados. And from Deluxe Pack EX, it's going to be the alternate art to Charizard EX. Right? Two very different styles of art here, and I think that's kind of part of the reason why it was so difficult to choose between them. But I really am a big fan of both of these cards. I think they look great. Gyarados looks like a badass. It looks like absolutely terrifying. Like, it looks like very real in this art, and something you'd hate to come across out at sea. And then this Charizard is just like gorgeous. It looks like something that you know, you could have found in a museum somewhere. Like, this art style just works really well, and I particularly like the Charizard of it. But I mean, this whole art style for Deluxe Pack EX, these alternate arts, you know, Pikachu, Mewtwo, Solgaleo, Lunala, like, these are all pretty dang good. I really like this art style. I'm just saying Charizard just because I think it just works with Char better. But so I'm calling it a tie. Best art, I had trouble narrowing it down. I'm calling it a tie. Guys, in the comments, let me know which of these two you think is the better art. Is it Genetic Apex Gyarados? Is it Deluxe Pack EX Charizard EX alternate art? Place your votes. Comment. Let me know. Alright. And then I want to say best overall card. Best overall card, right? I did best non-EX and best EX. Well, clearly you would think best overall card is going to be one of those two. And that's why I prefaced with, I didn't want to do any repeats, right? I figured this card very easily is the best card that has ever released. and I didn't want to use it for either of those categories below. Because I just didn't want to double down. It's boring. Yeah. But I think that this card has been a force to be reckoned with. It was good in the very beginning. It's only gotten better with time. And of course, that is Greninja. Greninja is the best card in Pokemon TCG Pocket in the first year. Right? Greninja Starmie was a threat. Greninja sitting on your bench, throwing those water shurikens, throwing that 20 damage onto people. Before Cyrus, before anything, it was just a great way to finish off your opponents if they retreated and sat on your bench. And you could just throw out... there weren't a lot of cards that could do it in Genetic Apex. Greninja, right? But you could have Blitzel in an electric deck or Hitmonlee in a fighting deck, and they both had to beat in the active spot, which put them sort of at risk. And Greninja didn't need that. And Greninja was good, and Greninja on its own as a stage 2, it can deal 60 damage, plus the Water Shuriken 80 damage total if it has to fight in the active. It's got a decent chunk of HP. Like, it was good, right? And, you know, as the sets come out, okay, great. It's fine, it's good. Rare candy comes out. Well, now you don't need to even find Frogadier. Man, you just go from Froakie to Greninja. It gets online that much faster. Now you can sit on your bench and you can chip with Darkrai, you know, and then you can chip with Greninja, and you could just constantly chip damage, chip damage. You could hide behind like a Druddigon. If they attack you, more chip damage. It brought, you know, chip damage into the meta for a little while, and, you know, you started pairing it with something like Giratina that could power itself. Now you could run dual energy, or you could just run water energy, just power your Greninjas and let Giratina power itself. It just pairs so well with so many cards. Throw it in with the Sylveon, now you're drawing, and you're getting them that much faster. The legendary dogs, that's why you always see it with Suicune. The legendary dogs are just, you draw through your whole deck, so you can really play through and get what you need that much faster. It's been the most consistent card. It is, like, as far as like meta relevance, it is not just been meta relevant, but it has been the backbone of the meta for most of the year that this game has been out. That's Greninja. And that's kind of my recap of the first year, guys. You know, kind of some of these categories. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun, kind of feeling a little nostalgic for a while, kind of thinking about the game. But yeah, I want to know what you think about best art. Is it Gyarados? Is it Charizard? Those are the two that I had trouble deciding between, and that's why I want you to vote between the two. You obviously are welcome to think it's neither of those, but that's your opinion, and that's not what I want you to vote on. So, between the two, help me decide. Vote. And we got Mega Rising coming out in a couple days. I'm gonna open a bunch of the packs for those. I don't really drop money into it, but I have barely used my hourglasses for Deluxe Pack EX, so I've been saving up tons of hourglasses. So I'm gonna open up quite a few packs, and because we got a 3-pack set again, I'm hoping they're giving us some extra hourglasses for the anniversary when it comes out. It kind of feels like they would. So I'm gonna do a bunch of packs, and I'll post a video like I usually do doing pack openings, and I'll do another deck video. Excited to get back to doing deck videos once we get the new set and some new cards. I'll try to do a deck with some of the new cards. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.